I think all of us in our lifetime have done stupid shit that we later look back on and think, what the fuck are we doing? Whether it's to do with our finances, whether it's to do with our mindset, whether it's to do with our body, whether it's to do with family, friends, whatever it may be. I think we've all made decisions that had we known what we know now, we certainly wouldn't have done them in previous years. And this certainly applies to me when it comes to trying to build a body, build a superior mindset, and ultimately a powerful level of confidence. And in this episode of the Kirk Miller Podcast, I'm going to share with you 20 things I wish I knew sooner. Because, as I've said many times on previous episodes, the key thing I'm trying to do with this podcast is share as much value as possible and ultimately help provide you with as much experience, insights, tips to help you build a great body, superior mindset, and obviously a new level of confidence in the most sustainable way possible. Because there are ways to make your journey towards a better body extremely painful, long-winded, and with far more suffering than you need to. And there are ways to make it a lot more pleasurable, because having transformed so many people now over the last sort of 13, 14 years, pain may get you motivated to start with, but if you are really trying to build a great body, great level of confidence and energy, etc., but more importantly, make it stick long term, then it has to be pleasurable. So I'm going to go through 20 things today that I wish I knew many, many years ago. And it'd be very interesting to see from these 20 if you are actually doing any of these 20 within your current routine. All right. So as we've got a lot to get through, I'm just going to fire straight into them. Number one, you don't need to eat every 3 hours to get in shape. If someone would have told me this during my 20s, I'd have saved myself an awful lot of time in prepping food. Also mentally letting myself breathe a little bit with food management. I was absolutely horrific in my early to mid 20s, even towards my late 20s, literally thinking that unless I was eating every 3 hours on the dot, it was going to fuck my metabolism up. I wouldn't build muscle, I wouldn't keep muscle, I wouldn't burn body fat. But it really is a ridiculous myth. For me, the only people that maybe need to truly adhere to every single 3 hours is if you are genuinely a world elite level bodybuilder, where in order to get the maximum amount of calories, where you are really, really trying to protect as much muscle tissue as possible, and get enormous amounts of calories in, then for me, that is the only way that is applicable. But if you're a business owner, you're an entrepreneur, right? And you are like me and my clients, where you have other things to think about other than, your food and your training, then, and you have, a high demanding schedule, then eating every 3 hours for me does nothing but complicate your lifestyle. And which is why, for me, so many people have probably failed in their health and fitness journey in their pursuit of a great body, because they've fell into this trap of thinking that, this is what I've read in the magazines or maybe on TV, on social media, that you need to eat every 3 hours to spike your metabolism. It really is bullshit. And I wish I knew this many years ago. For example, I kicked off my, I suppose, in inverted terms, bodybuilding journey, where I was trying to ultimately build a better body. And I used to eat 6 meals. Then what's progressively happened, especially over the last sort of 3 to 5 years, is that meal frequency has dramatically came down. It went from 6 to 5. And then when I moved from Coventry to London, obviously in a much busier city, I realised very, very quickly that that system for managing my food in relation to how I wanted to look, how I wanted to feel, and the body fat I wanted to walk around with was just totally impractical and stressful. And when I moved down to 4, that made things a little bit smoother, but it still felt like I was eating at certain times when maybe I wasn't necessarily hungry. I was just doing it purely out of habit and thinking that's what you needed to do. And it simply, isn't true. And then since then, I literally have whittled down now, being based in Dubai, and I'm sort of split between London also. I eat 2 bigger meals, and I have a protein shake to make sure I get hit my protein target. And the outcome is, one, if anything, since reducing my meal frequency, I've never felt better with my energy. because I don't tend to eat my first meal till around between 12 and 2. So morning is solely focused on work, and I get my session in at some point. And yeah, it's just optimizing my energy. I feel just as strong, if not stronger, because I'm still getting the same amount of calories in, but just in less meals. And another benefit of potentially reducing your meal frequency down, especially if you're a business owner and you've got family and stuff, is it allows for more buffer for calories at the times you typically want to eat them most, which for me is in the evening after I've worked long hours. Your willpower, your bandwidth is pretty much drained. The beauty of reducing the meal frequency down to sort of 2 plus a shake, so technically 3, I suppose. It's a lot more malleable and more complementary to my lifestyle. So you do not need to eat every 3 hours if your goal is to build a great body, optimize energy, especially as a business owner. All right. Number 2, you don't need to train abs to see them. This I suppose it ties in with a bit of a myth, really. But I was absolutely obsessed from the age of probably about 7 or 8 to have a phenomenal six-pack since watching Jean-Claude Van Damme movies. I don't know if there's any guys listening to this who were Jean-Claude Van Damme fans, but he was my first sort of inspiration, really, to really want a six-pack. I remember seeing him on all the movies, and he had a ridiculous body. He was obviously beating people up. He was the hero, the superhero of all the movies. He was a good-looking bastard for good measure. Didn't struggle with women, and as a young guy, I want a piece of that. So I wanted a six-pack. So as soon as you start exercising regularly, I was obviously playing football regularly throughout my sort of infant years and teenage years. The moment I was sort of semi-aware of the gym, I was that guy that was doing literally crunches and press-ups most days, and I would literally train my abs and my core 3-4 times a week. And obviously this was before I learned that if you're not eating correctly, you can do as many crunches as you want, you're not going to see them. All right, but I would literally do abs 3 days a week. And when I left Coventry, after playing football, where I obviously stepped my gym training up, I actually used to train abs before my leg sessions and before my back sessions. And then there'd be like a token 20-minute back session, 20-minute leg session. Obviously, I'd spend twice as long on chest and arms because that was the beach muscles. But my point being is I focused so hard on training abs. But they if anything, they're obviously even better now because I've got a stronger core, but I don't actually train them now. So it just was not a good use of my time looking back, on top of trying to lift weights sort of 5-6 days a week, which I did at the time. All right. So contrary to like some of the stuff you may see on social media or some of the preconceived thoughts you may have about actually seeing your abs, you're never going to see them if you don't have the desired level of body fat to see them. And to do that, as I've said in the previous episodes, you need to make sure that you're in a calorie deficit, and that's going to come from moving more and training with enough volume in relation to the food quality and the food quantity that you're consuming. So you need to be in a calorie deficit, irrelevant how many times you're training your abs. But why I really don't urge any single business owner and entrepreneur to waste time training their abs, especially if you are time precious and you have a family and a genuinely demanding career, they're a complete waste of time. Because from my experience, a lot of the guys that we work with typically have maybe 4, at most 5 hours a week to get their exercise in, okay? The priority within that time should be to lift, should be to make sure you're getting your steps in, because ultimately they're creating the energy out. Even if you're training your abs every single day, you're barely burning any calories. And, you're not going to see them if, you don't have the right body fat. And the beauty is if you're lifting properly with the correct form and the big compounds, then, you're going to be working your core immensely anyway. When you're doing exercises like squat, bent over rows, Romanian deadlifts, you're having to work your core so strong to actually stabilize your spine with load. So it's actually way more beneficial than your abs, even though you're not doing a set crunch. All right. So yeah, if you are nowhere near the level of body fat that is needed to actually see your abs, stop wasting time, training them. Make sure you're getting your steps in, your training, and then if you do have some extra time from within your week, prioritize extra cardio as opposed to training your abs and core. Number 3, and I suppose this sort of ties in with number 2 a little bit, and one of the reasons I don't really train my abs anymore, but I wish I knew about Pilates a lot longer. Okay, so I really do wish I knew about Pilates a lot younger. It's a phenomenal discipline. My partner Gabby, she runs probably the number 1 Pilates company in London, one of the best in the world, Exhale Pilates. And I'll be honest, I was very sort of apprehensive to explore Pilates when she was sort of trying to sell it to me, because I was thinking it's just like yoga, you're just stretching. I couldn't be further from the truth. It is an absolutely phenomenal discipline that would benefit anyone who does professional sport, anyone who lifts, anyone who experiences regular back discomfort or just feels that their body is just out of sync, and just maybe you feel like your body is just permanently a little bit stressed, where it's in your neck, your shoulders. And since doing Pilates, one, I've never trained my abs, or if I ever do, it's just as part of a conditioning circuit. It's very minimal. But since doing Pilates, there is nothing that will strengthen your core and your abs more, whilst making sure that it doesn't compromise the effectiveness and the strength of your spine. If anything, they work hand in hand, the way you articulate your spine throughout these sessions, and it just allows you to hips breathe a lot more. Because if your goal, listen to this, is to be really, really strong in the gym, where you want to be really, really pound for pound, strong without being big and bulky, Pilates will certainly help do that. Because if you think about all the compound movements, which generally are the main exercises which build a great body, okay, a lot of them require phenomenal core strength and your hips to be in a strong position, because all your power's from your hips, don't forget, on all the major movements, and nothing is going to help realign your body better, and especially keep that trunk and that powerhouse around your glutes and your core strong than Pilates. And I really believe that had I known about Pilates when I played professional football, I'd have had less injuries. I'd have probably been even quicker, had more balance when I was running. You just feel more connected from foot to hand to head. All right, so I really encourage you, if you are struggling with regular lower back pain, or you feel like you've hit a plateau with your lifts, all right, get out this misconception that you continually need to sweat loads and you need to continually lift every single day, to actually achieve progress with your body. I definitely think that, including Pilates within your workout will help you immensely. We include that within our Built to Last program, because for me, I don't just want to help people look great and build great strength, but I also want to prevent totally preventable lower back issues, and basically keep and minimize our clients from joint pain and just things that are just totally preventable. So do Pilates if you've never tried it before. Number 4, I was lethal with this one for my whole 20s, 100%, maybe even my early 30s. But you don't need to eat lots of red meat to build muscle. For years, especially having read so many different bodybuilder magazines, I was under the conception that in order for me to grow big muscles, that you needed to eat loads of red meat, obviously full of protein. Obviously, most red meat has got obviously high fat too. So again, you're getting plenty of calories in and stuff. But it's just simply not true. My diet now, in comparison to my 20s, there's just a couple of things that I do differently, even though the food quality is very similar. And that is, I eat significantly less red meat. I probably eat red meat once a week max, and the majority of my protein sources for 80% of the week is generally fish, whether it's sea bass, whether it's salmon, whether it's like tuna steaks. And a couple of things with that is, one, I look forward to red meat more when I have it, but 2, my energy levels have gone to a completely different level since I've had more fish as opposed to red meat. Because looking back, even though obviously I looked a certain way, and you still had plenty of muscle and stuff, but if anything, I just felt a little bit more bloated continually, because ultimately red meat is a lot harder to digest, okay? And the beauty of having more sort of leaner fishes in particular to make up the large brunt of your diet is it does allow a lot more buffer for carbohydrates and potentially a little bit more flexibility with your food by not eating red meat. Because for example, even when I was like really trying to go through phases, maybe putting a little bit more muscle, I would eat red meat twice a day because that's what I thought you needed to do. But you just don't have the same oomph in your day. So I encourage you to really look at your food if at the minute you find that you don't have the desired level of energy that deep down you want, or you just feel sometimes after eating red meat, especially if you're having it during the day, that if you're having little energy slumps after that, then maybe look at switching your protein source, because as long as you're getting, adequate protein in from, your overall sources across the week, it doesn't matter whether that's sort of coming from, red meat, lean fishes, chicken, eggs, etc. I think a good blend is important, but for me, if you're looking to get leaner quicker and live with more energy, then I would eat less red meat. Number 5, I suppose I've sort of jumped the gun a little bit, ties in with number 4, but eat more real food and less added sugar. Now, I've probably said this on the majority of my podcast, but there's a reason why I keep trying to hammer this point home. Because, again, if I look at my body comp and more importantly, my energy, because ultimately as we get older, I think we start to appreciate and value energy so much more as we get older, because we've got so much more we're trying to fit into our weekly schedule. We've got a lot more other people to think about, it's partners, kids, team, friends, all this stuff. And you're not going to do that without high energy, with more focus, etc. So in your younger days, just like me, in my 20s, you might be able to get away with a little bit more processed food, a lot more added sugar, because, I don't know, you've just got that little bit more natural energy, like youthful energy. You just might be out and about a little bit more, but at some point that will bite you in the arse. So if you are trying to optimize your energy, if you're trying to sort of accelerate your fat loss a little bit, and just generally feel better, right, and have potentially less stress, less inflammation behind the scenes, because ultimately added sugar and processed food will create more inflammation even if you can't see it. So if you're feeling stressed, sometimes it might just be down to lifestyle factors such as sleep and work. It might be down to your food. I encourage you to eat more real food and less added sugar, and just watch the difference. Number 6, sleep more and better. Alongside just that tweak in my diet of eating less from red meat, the biggest thing that I'm doing in my 30s, especially in the last 3-4 years, that I wasn't doing for the previous 15 years at least, is respecting sleep more. I cannot tell you the difference in productivity, in focus, in enjoyment, in training sessions, in mood, also being even more in control of your state, which obviously creates better decisions with your food and just day-to-day decisions. The difference is sleep, 100%. I was terrible for being in this 5 a.m. club, which I think is absolute bullshit if it doesn't complement your lifestyle. And thinking that unless I was getting up at 5, that I was a failure and I weren't going to be part of these winners that are doing that. But if you naturally like going to bed slightly later, then getting up at 5 isn't the answer. I think you really need to evaluate your lifestyle management and say, right, okay, what is the way I can get 7 hours sleep in as best I can, and what is my sort of ideal bedtime? What is my ideal, time to get up? And your energy is going to be your biggest feedback on that. So maybe evaluate over the last month, 2 months, or longer. On the days that I felt full of energy, what was my sleeping pattern? What was my sleeping routine? And of course, when you're a business owner, you've got family partners, kids, you've got social events, meetings, you might travel on planes and stuff. It can't always be that black and white, all right? But I just think if you are someone who has been a bit sleep deprived, or, you feel a bit like you're lacking control with your sleep, just take time to evaluate your week ruthlessly and go, right, how can I make sure that I'm removing meaningless distractions before bed, and I'm taking my pit stops a little bit, potentially if sleep's a problem. Because ironically, doing this podcast today, I've probably had 2 of the worst nights sleep in months, the last 2 nights, just because, again, I'm probably bit off more than I can chew with work tasks. And I've noticed a difference. You're just not quite as perky, you just ain't quite got that sharpness. And the common denominator is, my sleep. I didn't sleep quite as long the last couple of days, and it just wasn't quite the same quality. So I know, even just as you guys are listening to this, that, I need to sort of go back to basics with my sleep. But watch how much better you eat, you think, you train, you move as a result of sleeping better, and you'll get more done in your professional career. Number 7, train your glutes more. If you're listening to this, ask yourself honestly, if you were to look at your training, right, the last 10 years, how much within your training routine have you prioritized great quality glute work? And what I mean by great quality glute work is things like, glute bridges, single leg glute bridges from the floor, from the bench, Romanian deadlifts, stiff deadlifts, your single leg split squats, these type of things. Because if you really want to prevent lower back problems as you get older, okay, you notice I'm not talking about just looking good, right? Having a nice set of glutes and a nice ass. If you really want to prevent lower back issues as you get older, training your glutes effectively and frequently is not a should do, it's a must do, right? I've coached that many people that have come to me with lower back issues, which is so common when 1, you are overweight, 2, we age and our bones start to degenerate, okay, and posture starts to get a little bit sloppy, especially if we're in jobs where we're sat down a lot, or we're in trains and cars and on planes frequently. And the people who have come to me with lower back issues, to start with, when they first kicked off, they weren't training their glutes enough. And we have got so many people out of pain, and if anything, like turn that weakness into a strength just by sheerly training it properly with variations in tempo and frequency. All right. So, for example, inside Built to Last, there is glute work in every single workout. Whether someone's working out 3 or 4 times a week, I always encourage every single one of my clients to actually warm their glutes up before they do any lift. Even if their first exercise is upper body, is warm your glutes up, because that's your powerhouse. All your blood flow comes from there. All right. But we literally train glutes every session in some capacity, and it's no coincidence that all of my guys and myself are extremely strong pound for pound. None of my clients want to be a meathead. I don't want to. You want to be strong, lean, fit, powerful, okay, and be able to move and make sure that your lower back isn't compromised in day-to-day life. Make sure you are training your glutes, especially in the short position, more regularly. So glute bridges should be in your training protocol at least a couple of times a week if you have suffered with lower back issues consistently and or you're overweight. Okay. Number 8. I know I've brought this up many times, and I know I've got some of my friends in the industry who still love these bro splits. So there's no judgment if you love doing the bro splits. But let me tell you this, I'm knocking on nearly 40 now. Bro splits aren't essential to building a world-class body, right? Let me repeat that. Bro splits aren't essential to building a world-class body, right? If you're listening to this and you're in your late 30s, 40s and 50s, and you've developed a bit of inconsistency with your training or boredom with your training because you're still trying to do the same training program that you were doing in your 20s, which might have been chest on a Monday, back on a Tuesday, shoulders on a Wednesday or Thursday, legs on a Friday, or however you did, and then an arm day, right? And for whatever reason, you're not getting all those sessions in, or you don't particularly look forward to your sessions, it's a sign that you need a bit of a shake-up in your system and the way you're setting up your workouts, all right? Because, I've been absolutely fascinated the past few years to try and master and solve any single fucking problem an entrepreneur and a business owner has when it comes to getting in shape, world-class shape with social balance. And what I've come to realize is, you trying to maximize the energy output within each session and trying to stimulate your muscle fibers and get as much done within those sessions is absolutely crucial. And the only way to do that effectively, in my opinion, right, and it might only be 10 to 20% more than the guys who are doing the bro splits, is to do full body, because it allows far much more malleability with upper body, lower body supersets, trisets. You can get far more compounds in within every session, so you're going to burn more calories, you're going to create more muscle hypertrophy, and you'll stay structurally strong as well. Okay? So bro splits for me, I wish I'd have known about my current method of training a lot earlier, because I've never been as strong, nor have my clients, in relation to my body weight, and I've never felt fitter as well, which is just as important. When you're in your late 30s, 40s and 50s, you want to be physically fit, you want to be able to move just as much as you care about how you look. And to do that, like, if the bro splits are feeling like a bit boring or nowhere near as effective as what they used to be, switch to full body. All right? Number 9. Again, this is what I wish I knew when I was younger. You can still do cardio and be strong, powerful, and lean. How many of you guys listening to this have ever been told that you've got to obviously really protect your muscle tissue, as you're trying to build strength, build muscle, right? And to do that, if your cardio is too intense or you're doing cardio too frequently, you're going to be skinny, right? Of course, if you are doing marathon training and trying to bodybuild, you're not going to probably optimize muscle hypertrophy, muscle stimulus, right? But for me, again, this is something I didn't do in my early to mid 20s and even late 20s. When you are cardiovascularly fit as well, what you will find is, even in your strength sessions and your power sessions, you'll maintain more endurance and strength across, say, 2 or 3 sets or 4 sets, whatever you choose to do. All right, you'll just maintain more stamina, and also you recover quicker between sets. So if you are doing a big strength set or a high volume set and you feel like you need minutes and minutes to rest, then it probably tells you you're not fit enough, right? I and my clients train with ridiculous intensity, but the recovery between sets, even after a brutal superset, giant set, or a power set with slow negatives, for example, the recovery is there, all right? And not only that, guys, if you're anything like the business owners, entrepreneurs, etc., that I coach, they're at a stage of their life where, they want to they care just as much about emotional stamina, okay, as as how they look. Because when you're physically fit, you're mentally fit. And when you're mentally fit, you're sharper in business. You come home after a long day at work and you're in a better mood. So we want to make sure we tick all the boxes. So I encourage you, even if your goal is to have a muscly body and be strong, that you implement in some cardio, getting the heart rate high, multiple times a week, then it's only going to support that. Number 10, I wish I knew about boxing earlier. I absolutely fucking love boxing. I genuinely love boxing. One of the things I think I've missed since my professional football days, and even when I played like semi-pro and even Sunday League, for a number of years too, is I've missed just that different form of mental stimulation. And I really believe, guys, when you're evaluating your training weeks, that of course, to build a great body, you need to lift, and it's the heartbeat of what we do inside Built to Last and what I do with my own training and physique. But it's so important to make sure as well that you add a little bit of variety to your training week as well. Because again, what we're trying to do deep down, if we're trying to build consistency with our body, is make sure that we've got enjoyment and we're actually looking forward to our sessions month to month, year round, not just in spurts. So maybe think back to a time, if you feel like you've just lost the edge with your current training, go, what did I really love in the past about my training, or have I done sports in the past, and how can I maybe introduce that again, or something that will have the same effect mentally in terms of like stimulating my mind the way maybe something did in the past. And for me, boxing does that. It gets my heart rate up, I'm learning. And remember, one of the keys to expanded identity continually is to keep learning, to get out your comfort zone. And for me, when I started at boxing, I couldn't even put one foot in front of the other. I mean, I'm hardly like an expert now, but just through learning, being around people who obviously know what they're talking about, having world-class coaches, I've got better at that, and it becomes very addictive. And it just takes my mind away, from whatever might be preoccupying my mind. It could be a work challenge or stress or just something that's on my mind that is potentially creeping in to negatively impact me. Boxing just takes my mind away. And I really think that in a world where we're all chasing, financial targets, professional targets, having things within your week that just allow you to be in that flow state where you haven't got a care in the world, and you're just dedicating time to you, and it's so important. So, have some fun with your training, in the same way I've got my boxing. It's just the ultimate endorphin release. I generally like to do it on a Friday, sometimes a Wednesday as well. It just takes my mind away. So yeah, I just wish I'd have known about boxing. I think knowing my character and being quite an obsessive human, the way I was with my football, I think if I'd have started boxing at a young age, I'd have certainly had a good whack at going for it as a professional, because I think it's one of those things, if you keep practicing and you've got heart, then you can get pretty good at it. But any boxers listening to this, I have total respect for anyone who's been in the ring. It really is a phenomenal discipline that requires so many different skill sets, physically and mentally. Okay, number 11, plan your week in detail. I wish I would have been as organised and detailed with this in my younger days as I am now. You're just simply more productive. Simply more productive. I can pretty much guarantee if you're listening to this and you maybe are lacking consistency getting your training sessions in, you've got reactive eating patterns where you just feel like you don't really have structure with your own personal management, with looking after your mind and body, I'd like to see your calendar, because if I was to look at that calendar, I can pretty much guarantee that you've probably scheduled all your work appointments, anything to do with bringing revenue to the business, maybe leading your team, possibly even scheduled some family commitments and social activities, but you haven't scheduled in detail looking after you. And from my experience, having coached and helped so many high performers, the better you plan your week, the more likely you are to win your week. You will end each week, right, that 168 hours that we are sort of ticking off week to week with so much more done. And then when you do that, you mentally feel like you've accomplished more. So again, you just build that greater self-worth and just genuinely internal fulfillment. So plan your week in extreme detail, especially if you are telling yourself you have no time to train, because I've sort of positively challenged my clients on this many, many times. And so many times when people say they have no time to train, it's absolute horse shit. If you were to evaluate your time on low value WhatsApps, on low value emails and social media, if you accumulate those minutes over the course of a day and then over a week, I can pretty much guarantee within 168 hours of a week that you could have scheduled at least three workouts to move your body and look after you. Number 12 is, I suppose again, ties in with planning week a little bit, but I wish I'd have known about journaling a lot earlier. I think for me, journaling is one of the most powerful tools to sort of brain dump your thoughts, your feelings, protect and look after your state. And I keep coming back to state on these podcasts for a reason, because how you manage your emotional state, your thoughts, your feelings is controlling everything you do, how consistent you are with your training, your movement, and your eating decisions. Okay? So journaling for me is so powerful. I think if you look at some of the smartest people that have ever walked this earth and some really, really powerful personal development experts out there, all of them tend to journal because it increases your self-awareness of your habits, your thoughts, your feelings. Another benefit of journaling as well is you actually celebrate your wins more, because so often as humans, we're so quick to beat ourselves up about what we're not doing and not focus enough on what we are doing. Okay, and that creates, that constant sort of perfectionist mentality where, we're focusing all the time on having to be perfect in order to feel like, we're getting significance and growth in our life. So I think journaling for me is really, really powerful. It's great to self-reflect about where you are, what you need to do to get you to where you want to be, and more importantly, who you need to be, when you're putting pen to paper and just sort of analysing your thoughts. Number 13. Get a mentor, coach, or role model with proven success in the area of life you struggle with most. Like, if I was to evaluate my life to date of the areas that I've experienced, like, phenomenal growth over a quicker period of time than I would have perhaps experienced over that same period of time, it's when I've had a mentor to sort of hold my hand a little bit. And you don't need a mentor, like, all year round, for the rest of your life, and there is lots of information out there free on social media, on YouTubes, and ironically podcasts, even listening to this. But for me, the beauty of having a mentor, if you think, you know what, I just want to grow significantly quicker than I currently am right now in that area, whether it's to do with your finances, whether it's to do with your mindset, whether it's to do with a certain skill set, or even your body, of course, body and health, then mirror someone who is going to help chop out the mistakes and keep you accountable, right? And make you hit targets, and also make you positively challenge you when you don't hit those targets, and identify the stupid things that might be holding you back in that given area. So think of the areas of life right now you think, I really want to be successful in X area, whatever it may be. Think who has had proven, consistent success, and that's what's key, because there's a lot of bullshit so-called mentors out there, and which can make people very, very skeptical about who is the actual expert. Do your due diligence, do your research on a mentor or coach, or just simply a role model. It doesn't necessarily have to be, like a paid service, but if you are trying to mirror someone, evaluate, have they got actual success? Do they lead by example? Do they consistently say and do what they said they would do, right? And copy them. Merge it with your own personality, your own strengths, all right? And that's only going to add to your own identity and your own unique traits. Because one thing I've done over the years, to become the coach I have, I've had some phenomenal mentors over the years, and I go back to my mentors. They first started, I think, when I was at Coventry City. My first gym trainer was Darren Grucock. He was fantastic. He was one of the world's best coaches at the time. He'd worked with Neil Back, Martin Johnson, basically the England Rugby World Cup winning team. So it didn't really get any better than that. He was unbelievable for mindset, motivation, no bullshit attitude, just consistency, work ethic. And then I had some other great coaches, Tony Strudwick as well. He went on to become, Manchester United sports conditioning coach, strength and conditioning coach. I saw him warming up Ronaldo for a Champions League final. Okay, I've had a couple of good mentors here, but didn't realise it at the time. And then obviously since then I've had some other fantastic mentors. Mark Cole's phenomenal at helping, again, sort of elevate my standards as a coach when it comes to actually, being able to get people in fantastic shape and optimise technique and stuff. And then, Phil Graham as well had a great influence on me in terms of becoming a better businessman, optimising my service as a coach and obviously as a brand. And then I've had some other fantastic mentors and courses and role models that I've had, Tony Robbins, Brendan Burchard, world-leading personal development experts. I've worked one-to-one with life coaches and stuff, and these things have made me become more valuable and helped me grow in confidence. So even just doing this podcast, I suppose in a way it's one of the reasons I've subconsciously held off from doing this, is I wanted to become as valuable as possible to you guys and to my clients, when sort of trying to share my experience in trying to help solve a problem that you've not been able to achieve so far. But to do that, I wanted to have so many different armors to me that I can provide even more value to solve the problem in the most sustainable manner. But I wouldn't have done this if I hadn't have had mentors who have had great strengths and traits that I could merge with my own personality and my own style, my own beliefs, to help you guys listening to this and my clients, of course. All right? Just don't suffer than you need to. The last thing on the mentor or coach role model is they allow you to get to where you want to be quicker, right? And then if you're working with a mentor who's genuinely world class, you're going to become a master in that area too. And as I keep touching on with identity, one of the key things if you're truly trying to get in shape, stay in shape, and build ridiculous confidence long term is you have to expand your identity and condition that new identity so you actually believe you're in phenomenal shape, full of confidence, full of energy, etc. And it's just how you live. And to do that, sometimes you need to have people to hold you to a higher standard and not let you fall back into that old trap and just get sloppy. Number 14. Again, we're coming into, I suppose, more of the sort of mindset, personal development type things that I wish I'd have known about when I was younger. But these are just as important as the food things I've shared and the training things I've spoke about. Number 14. Work as hard on your mindset as you do on your body. Right? Work as hard on your mindset as you do on your body. Right? On the front end, right? you might be listening to this, obviously desperate to look better than you currently do, have lower body fat than what you currently do. But you might be also listening to this knowing that if you train consistently, you move your body regularly, you look after your sleep, you eat better and control your calories, you're going to build a better body. But why haven't you been able to achieve it? Or if you have been able to achieve it, why haven't you been able to sustain it? And I can guarantee it comes down to your mindset. It comes down to a lack of emotional consistency. And it comes down to, as I spoke about on this podcast, it comes down to a failure to control your mindset. Reactive behavior patterns, not dealing with stress effectively, not anticipating when these old habits, cravings, and these negative beliefs about our identity creep back in. Because I've been the guy, as I shared, I think maybe one of my first podcasts, that has been in phenomenal shape, ripped to fuck, men's health covers, men's fitness covers, coming out my ass, literally get my ass kissed here, there, and everywhere. But I wasn't in control of my mind. I was still affected when someone said something negative or, just wasn't to my liking. You experience that sort of punch in the chest in terms of how it affects your emotions. But deep down, it's not about them, it's about you. If you are being controlled by negative emotions too frequently, or you feel like you're experiencing stress, anxiousness, overwhelm too frequently, that is down to you, not someone else, especially if it keeps happening. All right? And it's until we get a grip on these things, you'll never master the habits needed to build a great body. So I encourage you to, really, work on your state more effectively, which there's so many different things you can do with that, which is, your journaling, your meditation, just any aspect of personal development, exploring your vision, your why, your purpose more regularly, okay? But working on your emotions and your mindset just as much as your body. And then when you have got that body alongside that, mentally you just feel absolutely unstoppable when you're ticking both boxes. And that's exactly what we're obsessed with inside Built to Last. We want build not just a world-class body, but we want the client to live with confidence internally as well as externally. And you want to build a superior mindset. And there's just certain rituals that you can do on a daily basis to help that. Number 15. I wish I knew this a lot sooner. Maybe this would have been one, definitely why I would have probably signed for Manchester United at the expense of Coventry many years ago, and possibly been a reason why I would have actually gone to that next level as a professional footballer. Number 15 is don't be a perfectionist. I think this is a mentality that cripples high performers and business leaders in particular when it comes to their health, fitness, fat loss and body. If you can't do something perfect, you don't do it at all. And the reality is everyone's perception of what is perfect is completely different. I think when we have ridiculously unrealistic expectations of what we think we need to do, be, or achieve to be successful, you'll never be happy. And this will apply in business, it'll apply with your finances, but it will certainly apply with your body. Because if you listen to this, and I'm speaking from the heart when I say this, you're talking to someone who's had a fucking six-pack for over 20 years. I've never been out of shape, give or take, being a little bit softer over Christmas and taking the piss on a holiday or two over the years. But you're talking to someone who's been in shape for many, many years. But the perfectionist mentality fucking crippled me for years. Because even when I was in tip-top shape, I was always looking at flaws. And even now, look, I'm being transparent. It's a great mentality to have to, be happy, but always think you're capable of more because it keeps your standards high. You can't be complacent at the same time. When you think, I've done that transformation, I've made it now. No, you haven't. You have to keep it. And to do that, to always be slightly critical is a positive in my opinion. But for me, the yardstick is too far apart for many people. It's the all or nothing mentality, and they create this ridiculous expectation and standard across all their areas of life, especially when it comes to food, training, lifestyle management, sleep, that they're never going to hit. So they just think, fuck it. I can't do it perfect, so what's the point? But the reality is, even when you hit your first transformation target, you're going to have done that with some blips along your journey. I've never got anyone in world-class shape, those transformations you see, without them making a blip or two, or not being, in abbreviated terms, perfect. All right? You need to think instead, consistent progress / action beats inconsistent perfection, but more importantly, inaction, right? So many times people will moan about the body they don't have, or the energy they don't live with, and the confidence that they'd love to live with, right? But often when I've sort of addressed this with certain people, I'm like, what you're actually fucking doing to, try and build that? Because so many people like say, I want this, I want that, I want a great body, all this stuff, but what you're actually doing. And quite often people are waiting for this perfect week, perfect month, perfect condition, or wait until they haven't got that shoulder niggle, that back niggle. They're waiting until they haven't got that injury. They're waiting until they haven't got that illness, or they haven't got that busy week, or they haven't got that social event coming up before they fucking start, right? And you're never going to start. And at some point, right, as the years progress, that'll affect you, right? That'll affect you mentally. It'll affect you professionally. It could affect relationships. So just, if you are like me, or like I was all those years ago, like a self-confessed and self-labeled perfectionist, it's fucking bullshit. It's insecurity. So just take consistent action as opposed to inconsistent inaction and perfection, and just watch how much more momentum you get, all right? Just have a constant state of improvement mentality, rather than, I'm going to be perfect, then I've made it, then I'm off it. Because the on it, off it mentality for me is the biggest problem of people's inconsistency. All right? Number 16. I'm going to do a separate podcast covering this subject in greater depth, but I wish I had an understanding of human needs, beliefs, and identity. I've spoke so much about identity in previous episodes, but if you're really trying to build and sustain a great body, live with great confidence, like a powerful mindset, basically more consistency with your emotions, because ultimately the quality of our life is a reflection on the quality of our conversations and the consistent emotions that we're living with. If we're experiencing more positive emotions than negative emotions, we're probably living a happy life. But if we're experiencing fluctuations in our emotions and too many negative emotions that are popping up too frequently, then that's a sign, irrelevant of the house you've got, the car you have, the friends you have, the perception of how successful you are. It means fuck all if we're experiencing negative emotions too frequently, all right? And if this is the case, we need to dig deeper into the human needs that are driving us and the beliefs that we need to have about ourselves in order to meet those needs. So for me, an understanding of, and I'll just very, very quickly skim through them, an understanding that everything we do in life is driven to fulfill a need in some way, and that is a sense of certainty, so avoiding pain, gaining pleasure, uncertainty / variety. Basically, if we knew everything was going to happen all the time, then we'd be bored. Significance, all of us like to feel unique in some way. As a business owner especially, we generally like to be a leader, we like to feel needed. Even as a parent, you generally like to feel important to your kids, okay? And then love and connection, of course. All of us need to have a form of love and connection, and growth and contribution. These are spiritual needs that, that if we're not growing and we don't feel like we're contributing and helping or giving, then at some point, again, we're just going to experience disappointment, okay, and stressful emotions. So an understanding of them, these are the things that are driving us. And then we have beliefs about what we need to do and who we need to be to meet those needs. And if the beliefs are not positive in pursuit of meeting those needs, your emotions will be your biggest feedback, okay? So that's why we need to address, right, okay, these are the needs. What beliefs do I need to have about who I need to be to meet these needs? Are they outdated? Do I need to create some new ones? Because I've said before, who we are is not who we were. So we need to work on our beliefs and continue to expand identity if we're going to continually condition a great body and live with a phenomenal level of health. Number 17. Wish I knew sooner. Look, this takes time, I think, in life. Anyway, you need to go through ups and downs, I think, to truly sort of find your why, which is 17. Find your why. I know I worked one-on-one with, great lady Cheryl Chapman on this to sort of try and get to the core of what I'm all about. I've invested thousands on branding as well, even with, my Kirk Miller brand and obviously the Built to Last program, etc. Because I just really wanted to understand myself on a deeper level, what I'm on this earth for, what is my true purpose, what is my true meaning. Because ultimately, life's all about meaning. Why are we here? What's our driver? What's our internal motivation? Physically, emotionally, professionally. We need to have purpose and meaning in these areas. Otherwise, we just keep going week to week, month to month. And generally, if we're not living in accordance to our true why and our true purpose, you will experience more negative emotions or reactive behavior patterns, which will play a contributing factor, as I keep coming back to your state and your eating habits, your drinking habits, right? You need to understand that, understanding why you're here on this earth, what you're all about, what really drives you, is playing a massive impact on your fulfillment in life and your health especially. All right. So how I can relate this to, say, for example, now, like me having a great body. If I look at my body now, I'm nearly 40 and, my body in my mid to late 20s, even my early 30s before I went deep on this stuff. Okay. There was different reasons for me wanting to look good. If I look at my past reasons for wanting to look good, they were based on insecurity, right? They were based on insecurity. That was before I discovered my why. I'd always associated looking good with getting self-acceptance, confidence, which of course looking good does give you confidence, but I'd attached looking good solely for external reasons. External reasons, that was my way of, other people thinking that I was important, I was good at something, right? But that's not going to cut the mustard long term. It's not going to cut the mustard long term. So now, me looking good, right, and maintaining consistency, with my asset, my body, my health, right, is for much deeper reasons that relate to my why. Okay, I love helping people become the person they've always been capable of, right? I love having to perform at my best so other people perform at their best. And I can't physically do that if I'm not looking after my physical body. I'm not looking after my confidence and my energy. So me actually looking the same, but having that deeper emotional connection and really relating it to my why, being on this earth to help people really expand their potential, and live life on their own terms and really remove all limiting beliefs and limitations, that helps me perform at my best. And so there's more value and consequence if I don't keep myself in shape now, because it's going to influence all the people that are investing in me and all the people that look up to me and need me to have lots of energy and be at my best as a human. All right. So it might sound deep and heavy, but explore your why. That's why even with my coaching style, my team, my friend, ask yourself why all the time. When you're doing something, whether it's a work task, whether it's a training session, whether it's a food you're about to eat, ask yourself, why am I doing this? What's the meaning behind it? Because when you ask yourself this question, then you obviously get a better answer on the other side. And if there's more value to doing that thing or behavior, then you're going to keep doing it. All right? Last three. Number 18. Your biggest lessons are your best teachers. How many incidents, events, traumas potentially have you had in your life, if you look back the last 10, 15 years, and at the time you thought the world had ended, you thought life was over, how are you going to come back from this? Could have been a relationship, could have been an injury, could have been a business setback, could have been simply failing, like I did, for example, Coventry City as a footballer, all right? And at the time you thought, fuck, that's me. Life's over. I've got to settle for a mediocre life or mediocre relationship or mediocre finances, whatever it may be, all right? But if you were to really analyse these lessons and these failures, these temporary setbacks, all right, they are without question your best teachers if you choose to look at it that way, right? Because remember this, as I come back to come back to the meaning, right? The importance of meaning on things. Something is only as important as the meaning you place on it. So if you've had setbacks, failures in any way, shape or form, physically, mentally, financially, emotionally, whatever it is, ask yourself a better question. What does this really mean? What is it teaching me? How can I grow from this? Is it actually true? The level of negativity that I'm placing on this lesson, is it actually true? Or what is it teaching me? Which direction and path is it steering my life towards? Because for me, nothing builds character more than having a setback, a lesson, and just something that really at the time tested your mental resilience. Nothing builds character more. If we don't have these setbacks, we're not forced to dig deep to grow. And, this may ruffle a few feathers, but I think we genuinely live in a world now where it's become okay to, be okay with losing. Oh, it's a taking part that counts. It's bullshit. It builds a fragile mentality. You need setbacks, you need to lose, you need lessons, you need failures, because that's how you come back stronger. But if we are sort of making it okay to lose and just, if something goes wrong, like you sort of play the victim with it, then we're never going to grow from that. All right. I work with some absolute fucking machines, inside the Built to Last program, and I've got some friends who are phenomenal business owners, business leaders, and they've all got to that level by, dealing with setbacks, dealing with genuine adversity, and building their character and stay empowered from that. All right. So look at your lessons as an opportunity to learn, grow, and become better. And then number 19. I wish I knew this earlier. All right. I'd like to think, and hopefully if you've listened this far to my podcast series and this episode in particular, and you follow me for a little while, that I am, and definitely with this podcast moving forward, like I want to be the most brutally honest podcast you ever listen to, telling the truth at all times, okay, and being my 100% self, so I can sort of hopefully inspire you to, make better decisions and just start valuing yourself even more than maybe what you currently do, even if you're successful, right? But my 19 is be 100% you at all times. I think there's been periods in my life, nothing too drastic, but especially when I, win a men's health competition, you start getting sponsored by certain companies, social media becomes a lot more active in your life. But I think looking back during certain years, even though I was transparent and I never, told lies about whether or not I was taking a certain supplement, or I've always told the truth on that front, it's why I left my protein. I never get told what to say. If I don't believe in something, then I'm not going to endorse it. So that's one thing, just to sidetrack for a second. If you ever hear me say anything, endorse anything, it's because I wholeheartedly believe in it. All right. But I think during those years when I was fitness modeling a lot more and, at the exhibitions, I think sometimes you're saying certain things, or you're doing what the crowd's sort of doing a little bit on social media, because that's what everyone needed to do at that time. Whether it's to do with a certain style of social media post, or you're playing it safe with, certain written post, or maybe a video on social media. But I know being that person, even if you're just being 90% of you, it's holding something back from people who really need to hear the 100% truth, which is going to come from your heart and your true, deepest nature. All right. Because I think the thief of comparison cripples people mentally. And I think in small snippets, it's obviously sort of affected me in my early years, because the reality is there's always someone who looks better. There's always someone who's got a bigger social media following. There's always someone who's got more money. And there's always someone who potentially is further ahead in their life in a given area than you, but that might be down to experience, background, or just simply not wanting to be, a high flyer in that given area. All right. But a lot of that time when, we are not being 100% self, there's a moment when you're being like that where you're not thinking you're quite good enough to be your 100% self, because otherwise you wouldn't be remotely trying to be someone else if you were truly 100% self-assured that who you are is who you are. And as long as you're not hurting anybody, and as long as you're trying to be the best person you can possibly be, then you know what? Not everyone's going to like you. Not everyone's going to be your cup of tea, but so fucking what, right? Be your 100% self. And I know I'm my 100% self like now, especially with this podcast, and the right people, the right opportunities, right, will present themselves at exactly the right time. Even the right lessons, just coming back to that for a second, the right lessons will be presented to you at exactly the right time if you're being congruent with yourself, authentic with your words, your thoughts, your feelings, your actions and behavior. And the beauty of this podcast is now, yes, of course, you know, this won't always be super polished. I won't always get it perfect, you know, but I'm always going to be 100% me, right? 100% me. Because I know if I'm 100% me, then I'm going to hopefully connect and be able to inspire you guys that anything is possible, all right? So be yourself, right? As I think this great Oscar Wilde quote said many years ago, be yourself, everyone else is already taken. So, and just watch your life go to another level when you do that. And then the last one, number 20, this is such a simple formula, but it's so simple not to know at the same time. And it was only when I did some heavy work, you know, to do with Tony Robbins courses, etc., that it was just so simplified for me. I thought, wow, you know, how didn't someone tell me about this before? Because I think a lot of people's suffering, pain, can be totally resolved when you understand this formula, and it's the happiness formula. I wish I knew about this younger. And you can apply this principle across any single area of your life, whether it's to do with your friendships, your relationships, your finances, your body, you know, your learning, whatever area it is, your career. And the happiness formula is this. It's when your living conditions meet your expectations, basically your perception of how your life should be, right? I can guarantee that you will experience happiness in your life and the specific areas of your life if your living conditions, how you're actually operating on a day-to-day basis, is in line and equal to your perception of how your life should be. So if I was to ask you now, tell me an area of your life where you're really happy, I can almost guarantee that your perception of how your life should be in that given area, your target, and for many years it might be a career, for example, your perception, your target of how life should be, and your living conditions, how you're operating on a day-to-day basis, is equal to that, right? It just doesn't happen by chance. But if I was to say to you, tell me an area of your life where your perception of how life should be, your expectation, your target, your blueprint isn't equal to your living conditions, your thoughts, feelings, behavior, then I can guarantee you experience more negative emotions and more drops in energy in that given area. All right? Because there's always something we can do. If we're not happy in a certain area, all right, which I wasn't for many years, you know, when I was doing my plumbing, after being let go from Coventry, you know, if I just sort of look at that happiness formula very quickly, my perception of how life should be wasn't to be a plumber, right? It was to be a footballer. Or even deeper than that, deep down, it was to do something like I'm doing now, which is help people perform better, right? Because I was doing that when I was a captain at football. I'm doing that now as a coach. But obviously, as a plumber, my perception of how life should be, my purpose, my model of the world certainly wasn't that. So you've got this, expectation, perception of how life should be, right? Certainly not as a plumber, but my living conditions was a plumber. And because they're so far not aligned and not equal, my behavior patterns were shocking because I was experiencing more negative emotions, right? And I didn't believe I had the power to change even my living conditions, or I didn't adapt to my perception of how life should be. Then that's when you experience suffering. So if there is any area of your life, right, take my advice, because again, with this podcast, I just don't want you to go through any form of unhappiness for longer than you need to, right? And what's going to help do that is just understanding that happiness formula. If there's any area of your life you're not happy with, identify, is it my living conditions that I need to change, or is it my blueprint, my perception of how life should be in that given area? Do I need to change my expectations? Because as I've said, you know, one of my event talks, sometimes you might not ever reach your ideal blueprint, your perception of how life should be. You might never reach that, okay? But at least if you're in the pursuit of that, you're going to experience more happiness trying. Because ultimately, life's all about, enjoying the pursuit of these things than the actual target. You need pleasure in the process just as much, if not more, as the pleasure of the actual goal. Right? How many times have you achieved a goal and it felt good for about 10 minutes or a day, 2 days, even a week, but then you need to sort of create a new process. You need to create a new journey, a new challenge. All right. And then questions to finish. I've lumped a hell of a lot on you. It's obviously one of the longest podcasts I've done, but hopefully it shared some immense value and I've been as transparent as possible. But as I've said on previous podcasts, it's pointless listening to these if we're not going to implement, if we're not going to do something that is going to shift the needle and get us progressing. If we are a little bit stuck in a given area just now, if deep down in your heart you're capable of raising your standards in a given area, if there's a certain area of your life where it's to do your body, your health, your mindset, your energy, or professionally, whatever it may be, that have maybe inspired you to sort of step up and think a little bit differently about, right? If there's any area we can be a little bit happier, then we need to take action to do that. So question 1, what are you currently doing that is outdated and holding you back? What are you currently doing, right, that is outdated and holding you back? So obviously I've just shared with you 20 things that I wish I knew about sooner. What are you doing now that your future self would look back on you right now and say, God, I'd never do that. Why are you doing that, wasting time with that? Why do you keep making that same mistake? Stop it or replace it with a better option. Number 2, which one thing from my list would help your mindset most right now? So which one thing from the 20 that I've been through, especially the mindset things, would help your mindset right now? Number 3, which 1 to 3 things from my list would help your health and body right now? And when will you action this? Because as I say to my clients, it's fucking pointless listening to me, okay, and say, oh, I'm pumped, I'm inspired, love the straight talk, whatever it is, if you're not going to take fucking action, okay? If you're not going to take action, you become better at whatever you do or do not do, all right? So, if there's something from my list that is going to really make an instant impact and create momentum in your health and body, fucking do it. And schedule when you'll actually do it. And how can you hold yourself more accountable, right? So you actually follow through. Because that's how confidence is built, doing what you said you would do. And then this is the quote I'm going to end with is actually mine. Because I think this sort of violates the perfectionist mentality. It sort of, I suppose, in a roundabout kind of way, provides an overall summary really of what we're trying to provide as the ethos inside Built to Last, and what hopefully I want you guys listening to this to think about, and that is, be happy with who you are, but always believe you are capable of becoming more. Because I know I've been very, very guilty of saying, I'll be happy when I look like an absolute god. I'll be happy when I've got that financial target. I'll be happy when I have that house. I'll be happy when I have that new level of business. All right. But what does it actually mean if we're not actually content in some way now with who we are? Because as a high performer and a business leader, you're always going to find a new level. You're always going to find a new level, and you're fucking telling yourself lies if you think that you set a certain age that you're going to retire and that's it and you're done, or you've set a certain target with your body and when you've hit that you're done. But life doesn't stand still, right? Your emotions don't stand still, right? There needs to be purpose, and even if you set a certain retirement age where you can, sit on your bed of cash, right? And even with your body, right? Unfortunately, you need to keep working on that to maintain that, right? So be happy with who you are right now, but as a high performer and a business leader, just continually stretch yourself, right? Because when we grow, that's when we naturally feel more valuable as a person. We've got more to give, and when we've got more to give, we can contribute more, and that naturally makes us feel better anyway. Because as I come back to the human needs, right, the more we give and the more we contribute, the better we feel. And when we look back on when this life's all said and done, right, and we go, you know what, we've squeezed every ounce out of potential from our life, then, you know, we can do nothing more. So thank you so much for listening. Love to hear your comments from this episode. I've spoke literally from the heart, probably even more than ever in this episode. But I just don't want you to, you know, struggle with stupid stuff that you don't need to and make things more complicated than what they need to be in pursuit of the body you're trying to build, the happiness you're trying to live with, and, you know, the confidence that you want to operate with. So thank you so much, and I'll chat to you soon.